Hello everyone, I'm Fozzie or Cam, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Will. How you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Super excited to be on this episode, and we also have a guest on again this week, who has to actually make a serious announcement before we actually get the ball rolling on this podcast. So, Mike, you've been a guest on this podcast quite a bit, actually. You were on a three-part New Year's special that we did. That was the last time you made an appearance. Since then, you've just been, I don't, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you've just been holding us back. We'll put it that way. So now is the perfect time for you to make things right. You're back on the podcast, right? I think it's time for you to apologize to the audience and to us just for dragging us down. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Cam, Freights, and Will Coughlin. Pleasure to be here today. Just want to say that today is September 25th, and that I'm also audio recording any and all interactions that I have on the podcast today to review later with my legal counsel. But yes, I'm absolutely ready to offer a full apology if my appearance and popularity in any way threatened you and Will as co-hosts on the Everything podcast, and I apologize
Awesome.
sincerely for that.
Great. Yeah, we were the amount of I don't know. We were just so threatened. I feel like by your immense popularity that we just I don't know. Maybe we just couldn't come to terms with it. I don't know, but
But this isn't about me.
You're right.
This
has
always been about the Everything podcast, and everything means everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone's involved, and it's always been a collective effort, and it's just been a great part to be a part of that collective effort.
Yep, you've been a part of the effort since very early on in the podcast, since like 2021, and it's just been an honor. I know Will probably feels the same way about as me, but I accept your apology, and I am so grateful that you're willing to see all of your flaws and recognize them and apologize for them. So good for you.
Yeah, I sincerely apologize if my contributions, my talents, and my voice in any way made you feel lesser.
Oh yeah,
during any episode that I have appeared in.
Yep.
Because it's not about any one individual. It's always been about a team effort, It's not about putting down a guest or putting down a co-host. It's really about celebrating and lifting people up.
Well, I do want to just quickly inject here, Mike, and I just have a quick question for you. I'm totally with Cam. I'm honored by the apology that you've offered on this podcast. I just have one.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for being honored.
I just have one question that I want to ask you, and I feel it's an important clarifying question that I need to ask before we can go forward. The reason that, so our audience knows, the reason Mike was suspended from the podcast was because he went on this tangent of acting like he was the third host of the podcast when he was not, acting like he would appear on weekly episodes with us, and that it was all three, and that this podcast belonged to all three of us, and he was one of the hosts, and you might be like, that's not the case, like why were you so bothered by it? And it wasn't just that he was saying it, it was the way that he was saying it. It was in, I thought, a very cocky and narcissistic manner. So I just have a clarifying question for you here, Mike. The reason
I want you to know that I accept your honoring and I accept Cam's honoring. I both heard you say that you honored what I was sharing, so I want you to know that I accept that. Thank you.
This is just a quick question that I have for you, and I love that, and I think that's awesome. I just want to confirm the reason you were suspended was because you were acting like you were the third host of the podcast when you in fact are not, and you're just a guest. So I just want to confirm, are you apologizing for saying that you were the third host of the podcast when you're not?
Thank you, Will. I appreciate your directness and the authenticity of your communications. I do want to go that, I never received any legally binding notices about anything. This is the first I've heard, like on air, of a suspension. I wasn't necessarily legally notified. I've checked my mail. I haven't seen anything, documents that were certified by a notary public. So I'm just stating that for the audio recording today, September 25th, as we're audio recording things to be reviewed by my legal counsel, which is a law firm out of the state of New Hampshire, the Live Free or Die state, but they also do cover the continental U.S. as part of their representation.
You know, I think we said this off air before the episode started. You know, we're all about.
I'm just so happy to be connected with you guys. It really is great to be together and lifting people up. We have to accentuate the positive, decentuate the negative. This is about people coming together, being united, and just spreading that positive everything podcast energy and love that you both have done for so long, and in such an exceptional way.
Thank you. You know, Will and I have done a great job with this podcast, so thank you for the apology. And, you know, with the whole, law firm situation, we'll have our people contact you in the future.
Only if necessary.
Only if necessary, yep. But, you know, whatever makes you feel comfortable, like we were saying off air. So let's get this episode started. Me and you, Will, at least, I haven't heard Mike's take on this show yet, but Agatha All Along was, you know, a show we actually discussed last podcast with another guest, actually. Check that episode out if you haven't yet. It's great. But we actually got to talk about Agatha, and that we just, I don't know, we just weren't feeling it. We weren't too excited for it, and I just think the marketing hasn't really helped the show at all, and just the overall state of the MCU in general. The track record isn't great, so all of that combined is just not helping the case for Agatha All Along. But then, the first 2 episodes come out, and I'm a fan of WandaVision, and this was pretty in line with WandaVision. It feels in that same sort of vein, especially the first episode, you know, and there's an episode that drops later tonight, which we'll talk about next episode. So I'm interested to see how that continues the story, but especially the first episode. They've been giving a lot of WandaVision vibes. So if you guys know how much I like that show, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And so I am really liking Agatha All Along right now. I think Catherine Hahn's performance is outstanding. I think it's a really funny show. I think it's a super fun watch, and I've been pleasantly surprised by this show. But Will, what were your thoughts on Agatha All Along episodes 1 and 2?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you, Cam. I was also not looking forward to this show. The trailers did not hook me, and I was thinking, you know, boy, if they're, and look, I think Catherine Hahn is a fantastic actor. This is nothing against her, but if you're gonna have her be the lead character of the show, you got to make me care about her in some way, because I did not like her in WandaVision, and I was wondering if they were gonna be able to pull that off in a successful way. And I think they have so far, and I think the reason is because Catherine Hahn has just been outstanding in this role so far. I feel like this is a truly exceptional comedic performance by her in many ways. She's had some of the things she said in the first 2 episodes just had me laughing out loud. So I feel like this has been a really extraordinary comedic performance from her on many levels so far. And yeah, I mean, like you, Cam, I was not looking forward to this series, but I'm also pleasantly surprised so far. WandaVision is not the type of show that I would watch every day. Agatha All Along is not the type of show that I would watch every day. And yet I have to like and respect both shows because they're, you know, as Mike says, you know, the 3 big terms, they're well written, they're well acted, they're well directed. I think both have creativity off the charts. And I think, the main reason to turn to of why Agatha all along has been so good is we've got to remember, the people who were behind WandaVision are doing this show.
Yeah.
Like, this show is being made by WandaVision people. So I think because of that, it's less surprising that this show is also good. And I feel like now, look, people can make a great original movie and make bad sequels. For instance, John Avildsen did a great job with the first Karate Kid film, and Karate Kid 2 and 3 are not up to the par of the first one. So it's possible for people to make a great original series and not a great sequel series. But I feel like when we were going into Agatha all along, we kind of forgot about, like, hey, yeah, this isn't looking great, but also, these creators gave us an incredible WandaVision show, and I feel like maybe we didn't give them the proper chance that they deserved for Agatha all along going in, and I think they're, just proving why they were more than worthy of us giving them that chance, even if we weren't originally excited about the show going into it.
Yeah. I'm liking how this is looking for the future of the MCU, and if they continue to put out shows and if the show continues to be high quality, if they can continue to put out shows of this quality, I think the MCU will officially be back on track. But Mike, what were your thoughts on Agatha episodes 1 and 2?
Yeah, thanks. I want to echo a lot of what I've heard you both express so far. Yeah, originally, when I heard about the spinoff, wasn't super excited, but I was intrigued by the trailer that dropped when it was a police procedural drama. That kind of threw me. I was so caught off guard by it. That being said, I didn't know what to expect from the show itself. And when the first couple episodes dropped, I was hooked right out of the gate. They do pull the rug out from underneath you in a few different ways that's reminiscent and harkening back to things that were done in WandaVision, but that yet different than WandaVision. What I've read is that the main writer, the head writer for WandaVision, is now the showrunner this series around, and directed the first 2 episodes. And so that level of creativity, of thinking outside the box, of commenting on the genre that you're playing in and toying with the genre as you're going forward. I see that, and wow, Catherine Hahn, what a performance. I just think she's at the peak of her craft as an actor. And I think, within the business and within the industry that, she's revered on many levels, but would you have seen her as a lead? Maybe not. But here she is. She's carrying the show. Not that the other performances aren't equally as strong, but I like what's happening visually. I like what's happening in terms of the writing and the script. Obviously, the performances, but I feel and I sense that, I'm on a creative ride. Every episode so far has been a creative ride. Can't wait to see the next one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's a good thing that the WandaVision creators return, and especially having worked with that character before, and so having something to build off and knowing where you kind of ended off and being able to experience working on WandaVision and working with Catherine Hahn. I think that was a super smart move for Marvel to do. And yeah, I mean, this is a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off. Because and that's usually never a good sign. And I mean, it worked out. But one thing I kind of want to get back on here is the unnamed character played by Joe Locke, who I know you're a fan. I don't know if you've watched as well, Mike, but the show Heartstopper, he plays the lead in that, and this is like his second ever credit. Is this big show, and I'm loving his character so far. I haven't watched Heartstopper, but I know you have. So you being familiar with that actor, right. Who do you think this guy is?
Honestly, Cam, that is a question that I would ask all of the Marvel Comics nerds who have read all the comics and read comics with that character in it. I mean, as somebody who has no knowledge of the character that he's playing from, any comic books, like, I don't know where he's appeared previously in the show, but I'm sure it's in certain comic books. But my honest answer to your question, Cam, is who is that character? that is a question that I would ask to people who have knowledge of the character that he's playing from previous Marvel comic books. So my honest answer is the Marvel comic book experts are who I would have to ask about that one.
I've actually heard that they've been reviewing the scenes in which you can't hear him talk, and that they're attempting to read his lips to find out what he is saying, and that there's been a deep dive into that. I do have a prediction about who the character is. And what's the character that Robert Downey Jr. is going to play in the forthcoming episodes of the Avengers?
Dr. Doom?
I think he's Dr. Doom. I think he's a young Dr. Doom.
Hey, all right. If that theory is right, you own the Everything podcast.
That's my bold prediction.
All right, yeah. If that theory is right, I'll give you the podcast.
I don't even know if those universes cross over, but in a multiverse paradigm, I guess anything is possible. But Joe Locke's been fantastic in that role and intriguing and carrying his weight, which says a lot next to the comic brilliance of Catherine Hahn.
For sure, especially that it's literally, if you go to his IMDb, it's his second acting credit. There's Heartstopper, huge show. Agatha All Along, huge show.
Right.
Which you got to admire. I mean, he's super talented. If he's this young, only been in 2 roles, and they've been massive projects. So, good for Joe Locke. I think I probably should watch Heartstopper.
Someone can come out of the gate and make a big splash right away. And you might not believe this, but I had never really been featured on a YouTube podcast until I came onto this one. And it's just like some things just get shot out of a cannon are an instant success.
You know what? Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. But now I actually wanted to talk about NFL Week 3. We've gotten to some interesting games this week. First and foremost, I just want to talk about my fantasy team because I do fantasy football, as I've mentioned here on the podcast.
What's the name of your team, Cam?
I'm not good at the naming. A lot of people do creative names. Like someone in my league, well, this probably wasn't good for them. Someone in my league, first round, drafted Christian McCaffrey. Obviously didn't pan out well for them. No. But the name of their team was Run CMC. Christian McCaffrey, kind of parody on Run
good
DMC. Yeah, that's a good one, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty creative, but I just can't think of something like that. But anyway, let me just take you through my roster here. So these are like I had the last pick in my draft, right? And we did a snake draft. So the last pick goes twice in a row. And then it goes back to the first, and the first is twice in a row, then it's back. That's just snake draft works. So I draft last pick of the first round, Saquon Barkley. Been doing great for me. He's been doing great. Then it comes back to me again. I draft A.J. Brown. Hurt. Alright. Goes back to me. Comes back to me again. After that, draft Joe Mixon. Hurt.
What's going on here, Cam?
And then, comes back to me again. George Kittle. Hurt. I don't even know what to do anymore. I obviously lost to my father, no less, who's in first place. He's 3-0 somehow. And it's just been kind of a mess. And usually I do good in this league, but injuries have been off the charts this season, so
look at the Niners, how they're injury riddled, right? And they're 1-2 starts, so you can see where it can happen. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still early in the season. I mean, but
did you draft Mac Jones?
I did not draft Mac Jones, unfortunately. Did you see the fumble that Mac Jones had when he came in for Trevor Lawrence in Week 3? It's too bad. I wish him the best. I wish Mac Jones the best, but he's not doing a great job yet. He's donezo. I mean, he had a chance to prove himself. Jaguars are getting smoked, and then he fumbles the ball. And also in that game, we got to see DeMar Hamlin get an interception, which was good for him. Good to see there. So I was happy to see that. Will, what were your thoughts on this week in football in Week 3?
First of all, I just want to say I love the NFL so much. The NFL is just amazing because every week this week there seems to be upsets, and that just to me is what makes the NFL so great and so entertaining. And I have I have so many different things that I could say about Week 3, but I wrote down a list of takeaways that I have from Week 3. These to me are my most notable games from Week 3. The Jets, as much as I hate to say it, destroying the Patriots 24-3. Aaron Rodgers and them are 2-1. The Lions, after surprisingly losing to Tampa Bay in Week 2, they bounce back, get a win over the Cardinals. They're 2-1. The injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers, a 27-24 loss to the Rams. They're 1-2 now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had surprisingly started the season 2-0, they got destroyed by Denver, 26-7. The Chargers, who had started 2-0 under Jim Harbaugh, had a 10-point loss to the Steelers. They're now 2-1. The Eagles, after what I thought was a meltdown at the end of a Monday Night Football loss to the Atlanta Falcons, they bounced back with a low-scoring 15-12 win over the Saints. They're 2-1. This majorly stuck out to me. The Houston Texans, they're going to be good this season with C.J. Stroud and Stephon Diggs. And they had started 2-0, but they got demolished 34-7 by the Texans. And then the Ravens pick up their first win, 28-25, but the team that they picked up their first win over was the national disgrace themselves, the Dallas Cowboys, who have now fallen to 1-2. The Bengals are 0-3. I mean, what's going on with them? And the Stephon Diggs less Buffalo Bills are 3-0. And that's where I think I want to end today. Now, I didn't see the comments, but apparently Josh Allen clarified his comments today and said that he loves Stephon Diggs and still does. That being said, I saw a comment that Josh Allen made after the Buffalo Bills Monday night win, which was, it's real nice to play with guys who don't care about their stats. That is a shot if I have ever heard one. And first of all, with what you were saying about Damar Hamlin, Cam, and his interception, I'm incredibly happy for that guy. For him to have this type of comeback after what he had, I'm so happy for that guy. And I gotta be honest, the Bills without Stephon Diggs, for them to have this type of a dominant start, it's raising some eyebrows for me about what Stephon Diggs might have done to the Bills' culture. Now, I did see Marcus Spears point out this week on First Take. He was saying, you know, before everybody just jumps on Josh Allen's right and Stephon Diggs was causing problems, you know, trained to remember that, you know, like they did make it to the AFC Championship game with him, that they were, you know, they were called Super Bowl contenders every season with him. You know, Josh Allen took a step forward with him. That being said, Josh Allen is playing some of the best football of his career without him right now. So how well the Bills are playing without Stephon Diggs is just really catching my eye. And I gotta be honest. Now, look, I was not in the Bills facility. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if Stephon Diggs was causing issues or if he wasn't. But let me say this. If Stephon Diggs was causing issues, and this is Josh Allen's, you know, I'm going to show you who I am and show I can win without you season, if that's the case, and this is what Josh Allen is going out and doing, then I am all for it. So the Buffalo Bills, who going into this season, I was just like, you know, their window may have come and gone. Nope, doesn't seem like it so far. So I got my eye on them. Mike, what were your thoughts on Week 3?
Yeah, just picking up on the Buffalo Bills story so far, it does look a little bit like addition by subtraction and moving someone who just wasn't with the program. You need everybody rowing in the same direction. I mean, you can have a couple guys who are doing their own thing, but it's usually not good for the culture, and they need to be minimal distractions, and that just wasn't the case. the Bills might feel that their window's closing and they might be stepping up because of that. I'm wondering if Allen has done some things to alter his game a little bit. He's also probably got a chip on his shoulder, much like I'm sure happened over with the Chiefs when Tyreek Hill left. And, Mahomes is saying this, we're still a winning culture. Maybe this is the season that Buffalo is able to put it all together. I'm definitely predicting Bills and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. There's just so much, though, intriguing going on. Look at Pittsburgh out to that 3-0 start. Out in the Western Conference and the NFC, Seattle Seahawks 3-0. I did not see that coming. Definitely didn't see a 1-2 start from San Francisco, but the injuries tell the story there. But there's been one constant for me across many seasons of the NFL now, and that's one team is going to underperform, choke, and not have an ability to show up in big games. And from the great state of Texas, that's the Dallas Cowboys. So, if you're looking to find something that's reliable in this era of parity, is that the Dallas Cowboys will show up with big names and big contracts and do the same thing they always do. Maybe scratch their way into the playoffs and get eliminated in the first round.
Yeah, it does always seem like that. It's always happening. And
I want to say one more thing about the Patriots.
Go ahead.
Will and I were talking offline about the pretty devastating loss to the Jets, but we'll find out, was that loss devastating? And I said, I'm not ready to comment on that game until I see how the Patriots show up in the next one. This season is about building culture. They had a great opening week victory, then that no one saw coming, and then a hard-fought loss in overtime. So really starting off strong. Yeah, starting off 1-1 in a strong way. And then I think this was more of the type of game that people saw maybe coming for the Patriots, but I want to see how they respond. Now they're going into a tough game, playing the Niners next week. And I'm expecting a loss, even with some injuries to key Niner players, but I want to see how they play, where the mental toughness is, and what the game looks like before I can really see what that Game 3 loss was. And as much as I hate to say it, because I'm not a big fan of Aaron Rodgers, he's got the chip on his shoulder, I'm sure, this season as well. And he's probably sick of hearing about Josh Allen. He's probably sick of hearing about Lamar Jackson. He's probably sick about hearing about Patrick Mahomes and his name not being in that conversation.
I mean, I don't know why he thinks his name should be in the conversation after he didn't. I mean, obviously he was hurt, but he didn't play last year, and I just sometimes I just have enough of Aaron Rodgers. I can't believe he's still in the NFL, especially after that injury. I think he could have retired, to be honest. He's pretty old now at this point. And he's still pretty good. I don't think the Jets are going to do anything major this season, though. Even with Aaron Rodgers, even with Breece Hall, and I think the Jets are going to disappoint as always. Even though they did dominate the Patriots on Thursday,
they still got that strong, tough defense. So we'll see what comes out of it. With someone like Rodgers, sometimes when greatness is away for a while, you forget, about the degree of the greatness. Just like I haven't been on the podcast for a while, and probably people forgot some of the things that I bring to the table to offer to this collective culture here.
Sure, whatever
Thank you, Cam. Thank you for.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Snowball.
Okay. So now I actually just wanted to take a moment. This was something we'd planned before. We like to do music segments on the show. We don't do it as often as, I don't know, sports or movies or whatever. But I like to, so we're just going to go through here. We're each going to talk about 3 artists that we've been listening to lately. And Will, I know you're a huge fan of The Voice, too, so and there's a new season out, so you can talk about your experience with the new season so far. And I believe, didn't you say Snoop Dogg's coming on the show this season?
Yep.
Yeah, you can talk about that, too. So, Will, why don't you start off? 3 artists and The Voice.
Yeah, so I think because I have so many things that I could say about The Voice, I'm going to stay specifically focused to that for now, and specifically focus on the 4 coaches that they have on the show this season, returning, I would say, Voice legend at this point, Gwen Stefani, along with Reba McEntire in her 3rd season, and Michael Bublé and Snoop Dogg in their debut seasons on The Voice. And let me tell you my thoughts going into this season of The Voice, because it was the same as Agatha all along to me. The Voice lost Blake Shelton a few seasons back. He was the king of the show. If you watch the show, you know what a comedic genius he was. He was the heart and soul of the show, and the show will never be the same without him. That being said, the Voice's first season without Blake Shelton, season 24, last year at this time, surprisingly, it was, I mean, obviously it was not the same without Blake, but surprisingly it was an immense success because John Legend and Gwen Stefani, two voice legends, were still on. They were fantastic. Reba McEntire, even though I found her underwhelming as a whole, I thought she actually had a very strong first season and had some exceptional coaching. Unfortunately, I feel she is just not offered or brought much to the plate these last two seasons, but I thought her first season, she was fantastic. And then Niall Horan, even though he was very annoying, he played the villain role that Blake Shelton played when he was on the show that season. And hey, it brought entertainment and it gave you somebody to hate. And beyond that, the talent in the first season without Blake Shelton was just extraordinary. Some of the best ever on the show. So The Voice, it's like first season without Blake, it's like, oh my goodness, this is going better than we thought it would. The last season, on the other hand, season 25, there were what I thought were expected bumps in the road. John Legend was still there, but the other coaches were Chance the Rapper, who was good, not hating on him, but just not in the level of some of the other ones. Reba McEntire for her second season, and Dan and Shay. And I'm sorry, but first of all, the talent and look, this is nothing against the artists as people, I'm sure, they were given everything that they had, but I didn't feel the talent last season was great. And besides John Legend and occasionally Chance the Rapper, I thought the coaches, in particular, Reba McEntire and Dan and Shay, had absolutely nothing insightful to say from the red chairs. Right. If you're a coach on the show, I want you giving detailed feedback when you're talking to artists, not just, that was amazing, that was incredible, that was a great performance, and I'm so proud to have you on my team. I got no room for that. You are getting paid. Like, please do better than that. So last season, for me, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is just like, oh boy. And then when I got the news that Adam Levine was coming back for season 27, which is not this season, but next season, I was like, oh, okay, we got something here. Because he's going to be there. John Legend's going to be there next season. So I was like, okay, we got two voice legends in season 27. I'm like, okay, like that's a season I can get excited for and get behind. This season, though, going into it, I love Gwen Stefani as a voice coach. I think she's exceptional. But her alone isn't going to do it for me. You got to have some good people surrounding her. Reba McEntire, I feel like, has been underwhelming since her first season. Michael Bublé and Snoop Dogg, I don't think I'd really be into either of their music that much. And, I didn't know.
Stand Michael Bublé.
I didn't know what to expect from them as coaches. And Snoop Dogg, when I would watch him on TV at the Olympics and stuff, I would feel like he was putting on an act. I didn't feel like I was getting a real and authentic person. That being said, the debut episode for The Voice, much like with Agatha all along, actually exceeded my expectations. Right. And first of all, Gwen Stefani is everything I want a voice coach to be. Authentic, detailed, and insightful in the comments and the feedback that she gives to her artists. I am blown away by her as a voice coach. She is everything I want a voice coach to be. Reba McEntire, I'm still kind of underwhelmed by. Michael Bublé and Snoop Dogg, do I love them? No. But as you said, Mike, to me the other night, their debuts on the show were definitely much stronger than the debuts of other artists that we see in their first season because, hey, it's hard to just, unless you're like Kelly Clarkson or somebody who just has the magic right out of the gate, it's hard to come on and be a great voice coach in your first season. And I don't think Snoop Dogg or Michael Bublé are in the great category yet, but they are better than what I typically see from coaches in their first season. So initially going into this season, I was just like it was like the least excited I'd ever been for a voice season. And I was just like, this season is just going to be kind of, an appetizer, a warm up, and we're going to have to get through it before next season when Adam's back. And that's going to be, the real thing to get excited about. Now I'm like, nope, I was clearly wrong. They brought in 2 new coaches who were going to be solid enough. You've still got Gwen there. And I think the combination of those 3 things can kind of make up for Reba McEntire's underwhelming aspects. You still have Carson Daly there, who I think is an incredible host. So a season that I initially thought would just be an all-time low, I actually feel has so far, and this is a real compliment because it's only the first episode, but so far exceeded what I saw from the show last season. And I hope they'll be able to carry this momentum into next season when Adam is back and John Legend is also back. So I am pleasantly surprised by the voice so far this season. I'm never going to love Snoop Dogg because I still sometimes just feel like he's putting on an act and I'm not getting a truly authentic person. But he's been better than I expected so far. So pleasantly surprised by this voice season so far.
That's great to hear. How many episodes are in a season of The Voice?
It goes from a fall season goes from September to December. They have multiple different rounds. Usually they have the blind auditions, and then they have what's called the battles, and then the knockouts, and then the playoffs, and then they do elimination that'll go something like top 13, top 10, top 8, and then top 5.
All right. Well, I mean, you'll have that show for a while. It'll be on for you, so that's good for you. You'll have something to watch. But yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying these hosts, and I can't stand Michael Bublé, but he is he's an impressive vocalist, so I can see how, he would bring something to the table. He knows what he's doing, clearly.
It's interesting too, Kim. He's written a lot of songs for artists I didn't realize.
Really?
Because he was dropping some people like Justin Bieber and just other people,
Wow.
Within different, and not people I was expecting, because I had him kind of pigeonholed in a certain way in my mind. And so yeah, now I have to look at all my assumptions around Michael Bublé, because I had the same thing you thought about it. But as a personality, because it's not just about being a musician, so you got to come out there and perform. Yeah. And him and the mighty Snoop Dogg, they brought their A games for the season debut.
Yeah, and I mean Snoop Dogg. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Snoop Dogg does a lot of things that I feel like he just most of the time, not necessarily bad thing, just does for the money. He does a lot of cash grabby things. But this is probably the best type of cash grab he could have picked, because he has been in the music industry forever. He's worked with pop stars, rappers, R&B singers, worked with everyone at this point. He's been around for so long, and I think, well, he himself might not be a great vocalist. He has an awesome personality, and he probably does know what he's talking about after being in the studio with all these artists for so long. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a good cash grab, albeit
well
for
cash grab or not, he was moved to tears twice on the Monday night episode.
Wow, twice.
Yeah.
Good for Snoop Dogg. I'm happy he's finding his place on The Voice.
He cried those Snoopy tears.
But Mike, so 3 artists you've been listening to right now, not necessarily favorite artists of all time or anything, just right now, 3 artists you're really into.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Do a lot of my music listening when I'm at the gym. I tend to make a playlist just for that trip to the gym. And so I'll talk about that. Then I'll talk about a couple of upcoming shows that I have, because that kind of narrows it down. So this Saturday, I'm going to a place called Hot Monk Brewery over in the town of Novato, because they have this summer cookout series, summer barbecue series. So it's outdoors. You go there, they barbecue first. There's a microbrew, but they have a whole outdoor setting. It's where my wife and I saw Toad the Wet Sprocket last summer, where I almost got in a concert brawl, but I can't get into that at this moment, but it did almost happen. But going back again, and I'm seeing a local Bay Area musician who's a kind of an artist. He's a rock and roller. His name is Chuck Prophet. got an upcoming release coming out, coming Wake the Dead. It's actually the fourth time that I've seen him, and the first time since the pandemic. I'm going with children's music recording artist Jack Kavanaugh.
A
And
guest on the show.
Yes, he's been a guest on the show, and we'll be seeing the concert together. It's actually the fourth time that we've seen Chuck Prophet. He is playing with his band, full band, the Mission Express with the show. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I've been listening to a lot of Chuck Prophet. Another kind of an indie artist, this gentleman named from a band called Clem Snide. He still goes under the name Clem Snide, but that was actually the band's name. His name, and he was born in Jerusalem. His name is E.F. Beasley. But he's doing a solo show at this place called the Ivy Room, just outside of Berkeley, California. I saw the David Wax Museum play there last year, but on his last album was produced by Scott Avett from the Avett Brothers. So Scott had performed a song of theirs, and I guess Clem outreached to them, and he ended up producing their last album. The band broke up about 10 years ago. He went bankrupt, he lost his house, but he kind of reinvented himself as a solo musician, traveling around. So I've been listening to a lot of his music. And last but not least, and I don't even know how I went down this 80s kind of pop star rediscovery, but somehow I tapped into listening to this album, acoustic album that was done by Cyndi Lauper of the Girls Just Want to Have Fun fame. And then I didn't realize like what a vocal powerhouse she was, how she's reinterpreted a lot of her music. I actually was playing some stuff for Will the other night from recent tours that she's been on. She wrote the music for a Broadway musical called Kinky Boots that she's won a Tony Award for. And real character, does a lot of work in the community for also the LGBTQ and homeless population. But I've been listening to her songs and some redos that she's done of some tracks, like she did a redo of her song called All Through the Night with Shaggy. And so, yeah, just been getting into her and reinterpreting and rediscovering, again, an artist who I defined in a certain way, and then I had to look at completely differently many years down the road. So those are three artists I've been listening to, and two who I'll be able to get to see live pretty soon.
Really cool.
But how about you, Cam?
So I actually kind of wanted to tie what you just said, kind of about Michael Bublé and about Cyndi Lauper. You kind of have to change what you think about them, and the first artist I want to bring up here is Charli XCX. Now, Charli XCX has had a big summer, for sure. She's had, I mean, at this point, I think it's safe to say, an iconic album release, Brat, which, I mean, if you're familiar with the term Brat Summer, which has literally became a thing because of this album.
Yeah.
And, I mean, before, I don't know, I think before 2020, she was a completely different artist. And then, I don't know, around that time, around 2020, maybe 2019, she came out, she before this, she was, I don't want to say...
Is she a pop artist?
Yes, she still is mostly a pop artist. And she was kind of your basic pop artist. And you kind of hate saying that, but it was true. She was a basic pop artist. And now, knowing more about her, I think she was just afraid, essentially, to go into what she's doing now, which, after this EP she had, Vroom Vroom, it was called, she has just gone down this experimental pop avenue.
Interesting.
And has released a few outstanding albums. And the album that really, I mean, got me onto her is that's really made her more popular than she was before. This album, Brat, that came out this summer, it was getting crazy positive reviews. And I had never really gone deep into her music, but I had known who she was because she'd had some, you know, radio pop hits that I hadn't really been a fan of, but I knew of her, so I was like, I mean, I have to listen to it. Blown away. The production on this album, outstanding. 0 features, it's just her. And on a modern record, you're usually expecting a few features, nothing, just her.
Nice.
And the production is outstanding, and she uses auto-tune in the way that an artist like T.E.P would use it. Revolutionary. It's she's not using it as a crutch. She's using it as her own, style, and it's something else. And I'm really glad she's been able to kind of come into her own here as an artist. And now she's selling out Madison Square Garden
Really?
with Australian pop star, huge pop star Troye Sivan, who I really love. Troye Sivan, I mean, not as much as I like Charlie XCX, but I've really gotten into his music because they go on tour together and they're kind of similar. So I'm just so impressed by what she's been able to do with this new album and this new album rollout that's just swept the world.
She's got a song she's done with Billie Eilish too.
Yes, that was
Mhm.
so she's doing this thing. So she had no features on the album, which, like I said, is uncommon. So what she's doing to get her features in, which I think she originally had features but didn't put them on the album. So she's re-releasing the
Dropping them
songs with
separate.
features. Like Guess was a song on the album, and then she re-released it featuring Billie Eilish. And the song Talk Talk she had on the album, re-released with Troye Sivan, who she's currently on tour with, so they can perform that together. And I think that's a really cool thing. And she's about to release in October the second deluxe version of this album. And
What do you think of these deluxe versions?
so I think it's kind of pointless. I think you might as well just release bonus tracks on the album and just have them labeled as bonus tracks. But the way Charlie XCX is doing it, her first deluxe album was called Brat, and it's the same, but there's 3 more songs, so it's not. That was literally the title of the deluxe album. And that's what it is. She's not it's not promoting it as a whole new thing. I think it's just a creative way to do it. And then on this new deluxe album, that's coming out in October, and it's going to have more features and more songs. It's called Brat, and it's completely different, but it's also still Brat, which I think is just a creative way to do this deluxe album thing. It's kind of a trend, but I've been really impressed with her. But next up here, I wanted to bring up Frank Ocean. I have loved Frank Ocean.
You have loved Frank Ocean for a while.
For a while. I think for pretty much the entire month of September, I have listened to the album Blonde, I think every day. Whether it be in the background while I'm going to sleep, while I'm going on a run, I think I have listened to the album Blonde almost every day. And that isn't an exaggeration, it's the truth. That album is life-changingly good. And, I see a lot of people say Frank Ocean's overhyped. You can't say that. Not only is he one of the best vocalists ever, I think, but he's also one of the best storytellers of all time. And his creative process is unlike any other artist. I think he's a genius. I think Blonde, I mean this is unrelated to the music, but I think Blonde has one of the best album covers of all time, which is so important in music. And I've just been so impressed by his work. And his last album, which was Blonde, came out in 2016.
I know, it's been a while.
It's been forever, and he's released a handful of singles here and there, and he's started to tease more music coming over the past few months for him, so he's been starting to tease new stuff lately, but he could never release an album again, and I'll still put him as one of my favorite artists of all time.
You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see Frank Ocean voice coach.
Oh,
Bring him on The Voice.
That would be perfect. I mean, he's such a good vocalist. But the thing with Frank, I just don't think he likes being in the spotlight. I don't think he likes the celebrity lifestyle, and that's why you literally don't ever see him out and about. There's videos on YouTube titled "All Existing Footage of Frank Ocean." That's a real thing. And I mean, I just, he came in, he got popular, and then he left. He did what he wanted to do. I think he just fulfilled all his goals. So now I think he's slowly, because he's been in the studio, we've seen him post images on his Instagram, and I think he's slowly starting to come back into music. But I love Frank Ocean, and especially now, I've been liking him more than ever. But the next artist and the final artist I want to mention here, the late great Mac Miller, who I think just if you look at his evolution as an artist, it's insane. He starts off as, I mean, frankly, it's kind of this punk kid who you still like. He's still endearing enough in his music for you to like. And he's doing these rap songs, these fun kind of party rap songs. I've seen people describe it as frat rap, and that's an accurate description for his early music. And then as he goes on with albums like Macadelic, Faces, he starts to go down this weird journey. I mean, not weird in a good way, of jazz, of pop, of classic hip hop, and his evolution as an artist was ridiculous, and he had so much potential, so much potential. And then he released his album, The Divine Feminine, 2016, which was, I think, that was the real start of the next level for him. He was one person, and then he released Divine Feminine, and then he was someone else. And that album, he experimented with so many things. And then he released, in 2018, his magnum opus, Swimming, which I thought I had a poster. Oh, it's up there. I have a poster in front of me, of Swimming. It's a perfect album. It incorporated hip hop, incorporated pop, and the jazz influences were still there. And then he passed away.
How'd he die?
Accidental drug overdose. And he had some struggles, obviously. He talked about in his music with mental health in general. And you can see that in his music. But he died, I think, 3 months after Swimming was released. He was working on another album at the same time that was pretty much finished by the time of his death, called Circles, and it was meant to be a companion album with Swimming in Circles. And it was supposed to be a whole thing, and he passed away before it was released. So the producer he was working closely with on this album, Circles, finished up the album for him, and then released it. And that is, I think, the peak of Mac Miller. And it's too bad he was not allowed to see it come out. I think the song That's On Me, Good News, the opening track, Circles, just brilliant. And his singing, there's no one else who sounds like him.
What's your favorite album of his?
I think it's gonna be Circles. And I have a weird thing with posthumous albums, because you don't always know if that is the artist's true vision. But the Mac Miller estate, which is managed by his family, and they haven't released anything new from Mac Miller. So I think the fact that they actually decided to release Circles shows that, yeah, it was pretty much his whole thing was his vision. I think they just had to do some adjustments to the producing or something. I don't know, but
what about the album Kids?
Kids, his debut album, or I guess it's a mixtape. That's kind of where he started, and that has actually his most popular song, "The Spins," and I think it's a nostalgic feeling. It's definitely early in his career, you can tell. But if you listen to Kids, and then you listen to Swimming, it's like you're listening to two completely different artists. He improved so much, and he probably would have improved even more had he not passed away, unfortunately. So yeah, those are the artists I'm listening to right now. And yeah, I also wanted to mention quickly, well, honorable mention, Chappell Roan. If you haven't heard Chappell Roan's music, she's dropped a bunch of new music recently, and it's phenomenal. And I just wanted to get that out of the way. Anyway, the Thunderbolts trailer dropped the other day, and me and Will, Mike, you haven't seen it. Were you able to watch it over the break, or are you just still not interested in it?
I'm sorry, I didn't. I've lacked so little interest, even over the break between segment 1 and segment 2. I did not watch it. Thunderbolts is I'm gonna have to have some big things happen in the theater to drag me to that one. I have no interest. I'm not saying it might not be good, but
Yeah, I get.
I don't think this is the film that's going to continue to build. This is my prediction, not the film to continue to build momentum for the MCU. Who's the director? Do we know? They.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna tell you, I
I
don't get
see
a
what
good
you're
vibe.
saying, but Will, I want to hear your thoughts first. But I like this trailer. I mean, what were your in-depth thoughts on this?
Unfortunately, I didn't love it. And I think my thing is like, okay, like I'm interested in Florence Pugh and David Harbour's characters, and I'm interested in uh Sebastian Stan's character, but like the other, I don't know, like the other characters I just don't find myself as into as those three. And there was just something to me about the Captain America. I mean, looking at the trailers for the two MCU movies coming out next year, Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolts. Captain America Brave New World, right from the start, is just like it just had this thing. It like hooked me. I was just like, ooh, this just looks like a gritty political thriller of a superhero movie. And Thunderbolts, I was just kind of like, like like the scene at the end of the trailer where like where they're where they're all in the car and David Harbour's making the bulletproof joke. I like that, like it just like the comedy didn't really work for me in that scene. So maybe it'll prove me wrong, but so far I'm significantly more excited for Captain America Brave New World than Thunderbolts.
Me too, but listen to this. Thunderbolts, the director, he directed a Chance the Rapper concert film in 2021.
Wow.
I'm a big Chance the Rapper fan, so now
Yeah.
that piques my interest a little bit.
Is
And
there,
we'll look at that cast. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is in the movie too. I didn't
Seinfeld
realize
fame. I
that.
mean, I see this movie as kind of a Black Widow sequel in a way, just without Black Widow. And actually, Scarlett Johansson is a producer on this film, which is actually pretty interesting because she had like a pretty public dispute with Marvel. She sued
They
them.
settled it. They settled it, but I don't know what it settled as. But Florence Pugh doesn't have. She has very low billing. You know,
Yeah,
if you're looking at the names of the stars, she's the last one. I just wonder. But
yeah. I think I don't know. I don't know if is that official yet though, the order of billing yet, because I
she
see
could
it
be.
on IMDb.
Sometimes the last person's big though too, right? It all
Yeah,
depends. Sometimes, yeah.
yeah. I guess we'll see. But I was actually really impressed by this trailer. I thought the comedy was fine. I mean, that wasn't what I was really most drawn to, but I actually really like the character of John Walker. I think he's one of the most compelling characters in the MCU right now, and that's saying a lot because I didn't like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I really enjoy his character. So I'm excited to see more of him. I'm excited for the introduction of Sentry into the MCU, who's a major character in the comics. That'll be interesting to see how they handle that. I mean, I can't say I'm an expert on Sentry, but I know of him and I know how big of a role he plays in the comics. So excited to see him being introduced there. I'm impressed. I think this is another grounded movie that Marvel needs right now. They've had a lot of kind of fantastical movies as of late, right? So, like, I mean, Deadpool, which could have been grounded, but they didn't go that route, and that was fine. But I'm happy with these two grounded Marvel trailers in Captain America and Thunderbolts. I'm looking forward to watching both of these. But if either of them are bad, that will really impact the MCU. It will possibly have devastating impacts on the future of the MCU if either of those movies are bad. So the stakes are pretty high.
You think so? But Deadpool and Wolverine was so huge; it was massive.
I know, but you still have people hate because I think the thing with Deadpool and Wolverine, everyone knew it was going to be good. Like there was
No,
really no doubt in anyone's
you're
mind.
still gonna make it good though, right? You're still gonna pull
That's
it off.
true. That's true. But I think people having the thought in their head before and had seeing these other movies beforehand, I think that kind of put something into someone's head. But with Thunderbolts, we've never seen the Thunderbolts movie before, and we've never seen the Captain America movie with Sam Wilson as Captain America, and we all know the people are going to be upset with that. So people already are upset with that. So it's going to be a whole thing. If they're bad, it'll be devastating, I think. But briefly now, we have another time constraint. We have 5 minutes left until we have to wrap this up according to our Zoom non-premium plan. So briefly, I wanted to discuss the possibility of a second presidential debate. I think it would probably be, I think, Kamala Harris's favor to have another debate with Donald Trump, because I think it was kind of leaning towards her. I think people were kind of gravitating more towards her after the first debate, especially after some of the kind of interesting things Donald Trump said, especially with people watching short form content. A lot of it can be taken out of context, which can sway a lot of people, especially that whole thing about the dogs in Springfield, the pets in Springfield. So a lot of people are seeing that, and granted, the context doesn't really help, but out of context, people are seeing that and are forming opinions that don't shed a positive light on Donald Trump. So I think if they were to hold a second debate, it would definitely lean towards Kamala even more. But Will, what do you think the effect of a second presidential debate would have on both the candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kamala Harris is fully going on the offense right now. She has accepted CNN's offer for a second debate, and Donald Trump, to quote him, said, "I'd love to have the debate in many ways, but it's just too late." That's what former President Trump said. And look, the general consensus is that Kamala Harris won the first debate. So I think going into the second debate, she would definitely have momentum. And obviously, Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz have gotten a ton of momentum ever since Joe Biden stepped down. And I don't right now, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a second presidential debate. Maybe that'll change, but the only thing to me that could really kind of switch the tides of this race back to Donald Trump would be if he does end up agreeing to debate Kamala Harris a second time, has a really strong debate. But if that doesn't happen, then I think Kamala Harris will continue the momentum that she has received since Joe Biden stepped down. But what do you think, Mike?
Power move, I think, by the Harris campaign. I think it's a no-lose situation for the Harris campaign. Harris, I think, is in her element in that context, and I think the Trump campaign did a pivot, and I think it was a wise one, because I don't think they had anything to win by showing up for the second debate. It would be great theater. I think it'd be good for the American public for having another debate, but I don't see Trump's advisors putting him in that situation. I don't think he has anything to gain by doing a second debate.
For sure. Well, this has been a fantastic episode of the Everything Podcast, everyone. Mike, it was actually fantastic having you on this episode.
Great to be here.
We were able to have a civil discussion, and like I said, you'll, in, I don't know, a week or two, probably be receiving a letter. Just check your mail. We'll handle it. We'll handle it like
looking forward to
like
it.
Gentlemen.
I love correspondence. I love the correspondence.
Yes, for sure. And I'm glad you were comfortable recording this podcast for yourself. Whatever you had to do.
Well, not just for myself, but for my attorney as well.
Of course, yeah. Will, thanks for joining me as always, and thank you all very much for watching this episode of the Everything Podcast. And Mike, yeah, I think we'll consider having you on again. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.